On this problem, we are asked to graph this function, and then after that, find the inverse, and then graph the inverse. So first, what we see is the basic function is ln of x on natural log of x. Just like any log, the graph of a log function in general will go to the point 1 and 0, and it has the vertical asymptote as the x-axis. Y-axis, x equal to 0. So this is the vertical asymptote, x equal to 0. And the graph will go like that. So that's the graph of the log, or in this case ln of x, or the natural log of x. And then we have the plus 1 to it. So pretty much this graph will shift 1 unit up. So this point will go up there. The vertical asymptote go up 1 unit, so we still have the same line. So the graph will go just like that. Everything will go up 1 unit. So the point 1 and 0 go up 1 unit. The vertical asymptote go up 1 unit. Still the same line. Right. And from the graph of the function, we can find the domain and then the range. Actually, we sketch the graph first. Right. The domain. In general, this refer back to the first question of this review. Whatever we have inside the log have to be positive. The log of any base, logarithm of any base, the argument must be positive. So we just have x greater than 0, or we write the domain is from 0 to infinity, not including 0. So we that. Sketch the graph, already did that. Find the range. When we look at the range, the vertical asymptote, so it get up close to the line, but we never touch. So this will keep going down to negative infinity and keep going up to infinity. So the range negative infinity to infinity. And so that is the domain for the function, the range for the function. And this is the graph. Next we'll find the inverse, and then find the domain and the range of the inverse, and then sketch the inverse. So we don't even need to know what is the inverse. We can answer this part first, the domain and range. So we use that properties. The domain of the function is the range of the inverse. And the range of the function is the domain of the inverse. And from the first part, the domain is from 0 to infinity. And the range of the function is negative infinity to infinity, so that will be the domain of the inverse. Yeah, this problem where we plus 1 unit up the range doesn't affect anything. So domain of the function, range of the inverse, is 0 to infinity. The range of the function domain of the inverse negative infinity to infinity. Now we find the inverse. When we find the inverse, there will be 4 steps of the problem. So let me write the function first. So the first thing we do is replace the function by y, and then interchange x and y. So y becomes x and x becomes y. And after that, we just need to solve for y. To solve for y, we subtract 1 on both sides. So have x minus 1 equal to ln of y. And then to solve for y, raise both sides to the power of base e, because we have these properties. E to the ln of x, e and ln can cancel out, so that's just x. Same thing here, e and ln here we simplify, and we have y equal to e to the x minus 1. And so that is the inverse. And we use the notation for the inverse. Instead of y, we write inverse is equal to e to the x minus 1. Right, now we're going to graph this function. So first, e to the x, we go to the point 0 and 1. So that is e to the x. And we have minus 1 on the x, so everything will go to the right 1 unit. So this point go to 1 unit to the right. And also for the exponential function, we have the horizontal asymptote. Y equal to 0, this line. And that line goes 1 unit to the right, so it's still the same line. So the graph will go like this. Right, so that is the inverse. So we have that. Just one more thing though. If we're going to graph the inverse and the function on the same coordinate system, I'm going to do that in pencil here. Go to the point 1 and 1. That the exponential function, the inverse e to the x minus 1, and it is symmetric on the line y equal to x. As you see, it is the mirror image of each other. So the graph of ln of x, or any log of any base, will be like that. Go to the point 0 and 1. This one go 1 unit up, and we have that. When we're trying to find the inverse, interchange x and y, and then solve for y, we have the inverse. And the domain of the function is the range of the inverse. The range of the function is the domain of the inverse. And then we have the graph, exponential function. That goes 1 unit to the right.